Wherever you're watching, citywide, statewide, nationwide, worldwide, this is the one and only Line to Gain show on the Buffalo Rumblings Network. I am the Big O, Jerry Ostroski. She is Sara Larson. We've got a great show for you today. We're going back to our original format as college football has started. The NFL starts this week. Tomorrow night, as a matter of fact, the Detroit Lions and Kansas City Chiefs matchup. But tonight, on the first half hour, we're going to talk college football, and we are joined by National College Football analyst and host of the number one show at Fox Sports, RJ Young, my good friend, will join us. And then at the bottom of the hour, it's what everyone has been waiting for all week. It's week one of the NFL season. We'll talk about our Buffalo Bills in a Monday night matchup, taking on the New York Jets out in New Jersey, an away game, and a big one at that to start the season. But first, before we bring RJ in here in a moment, let's hear from our sponsors.
Hey, football fans, the season is here, so you know that means family, football, and food. But for the NFL's best fan base, it can't be just any food. Bills Mafia only eats the best during the season, and the best is Picasso's Pizza. With 4 great locations in Western New York, it's so easy to treat yourself to the most flavorful pizza on game day. Picasso's. We are Buffalo Pizza, shipping local and nationwide. Order online at picassospizza.net. Bills Mafia is back. Are you ready for it? The 3rd annual Buffalo Rumblings IPA beer release party is going down September 16th, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Resurgence Brewing Company located downtown at 55 Chicago Street. I'm going to tell you what, you do not want to miss this event. Come out and hang with Joe, Sarah, and the rest of the Buffalo Rumblings crew for the Megapod. You're going to want to bring your questions and be a part of the live stream. Get involved. It's going to be live. And this year, we're also going to have our friends from Fans of Buffalo joining the party and sponsoring the fun. They're going to be in the house to provide you with all the information you need to make your away game day experience the easiest and the most smooth that you've ever had in your life. I can promise you, they do their job very well. So make sure you make it out Saturday, September 16th, 6 p.m., Resurgence Brewing Company, 55 Chicago Street. Go Bills.
And as always, this season, our first segment will be college football, and our college football segments will be brought to you, of course, by Picasso's Pizza. And RJ will join us here in a moment on the Line to Gain show. Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I actually struggled a little bit today. Woke up with, unfortunately, this terrible migraine, but had a couple of things to do this afternoon, so trying to push through it and getting ready, packing up and everything. So hanging in there. But one thing I will say before we get into the rest of the college football segment, I'm very happy that my Hurricanes won their first game, and your Hurricanes.
No, let's phrase that. This is how you differentiate it.
Golden Hurricane.
They're your Hurricanes. They're my hurricane. We are singular.
Okay, there
no
we go.
F. There you go. Yes, we had a great first win of the season. Kind of a tune-up. Got to watch my son make his first start. He played a really good game. My wife and I are getting on a plane tomorrow. We're heading to Seattle, Washington, as the Golden Hurricane take on the 10th ranked Washington Huskies.
You know that's going to be a little difficult for me because obviously I want to pull for Owen, but at the same time, my family, my father and my uncle were both from Seattle, and my uncle went to UW and my dad went to Washington State, so I'm very big on Washington football. So it's going to be a little hard for me, but I will make sure that I root on Owen. And that game's at like 5 p.m. I think Eastern.
Yeah, Eastern, but it's 2:30 there, 4:30 Central Time.
Okay, so then 5:30 Eastern. Then okay, so
catch it on TV, please do.
Yeah, it'll be on the opposite end of the Hurricanes game because the Hurricanes play Texas A&M, who's also ranked. So that'll be not fun to watch, but we'll see how it happens.
Hey, I don't want to waste any more time.
Yep,
my man,
RJ
Young, national college football analyst, host of the number one football show, the number one college football show at Fox Sports. RJ, man, what's up, dude?
Chilling, man. Trying to figure out how Sarah's going to get out of having the both of us rooting for Owen and TU because that's the only choice here. There is no Washington to root for.
Yeah,
on this here
understood.
show at this time. Hey, Sarah, nice to see you.
Nice to see
Uh,
you.
RJ Young joined us. You can catch him out. He does digital content for Fox Sports. You'll catch him sometimes on television. He does some pieces for Fox Sports. Good friend of mine. Known RJ a long, long time. I've been gloating on you a little bit with Sarah, and what I've been gloating about is this. If you go across the board, national football analysts have been making top 25 predictions, top 25 preseason polls all off season. There's only one that had the Colorado Buffaloes in the top 25, and that's the guy we're talking to right now, RJ Young. RJ, what did you see from Colorado that led you to believe they should have been ranked? I believe you had them 22, I believe, at the start of the in your preseason poll.
Right. I had them at 20 to start.
20.
They're up to, I think,
Okay.
18 now. But,
Okay.
I mean, it's much of the same things that we would look for in college football in particular. Do you have a generational head coach? Yeah. Do you have coordinators that know what they are doing and come from programs where they have shown you that, in the case of Sean Lewis, the offensive coordinator, they put up 606 yards of offense a game in 2020. Charles Kelly, National Recruiter of the Year coming out of Alabama, helped put together that 2020 national championship team. And then do you have dudes? And every time they went into the portal, they came out with gems. You add Shedeur Sanders and what he was able to do at Jackson State, and then the year with Travis Hunter, and you could see how other guys wanted to play with them. And you were getting really resources that you never had at Jackson State. It's one of the things that we talk about often is there's a difference in level between the FCS and the FBS. But that really does not get to the point of 63 scholarships versus 85, how much money you get to put into your program, how much television revenue money you can get from that, and then the ancillary benefits of being on national television. All those things come together around Prime, who has made a living winning, right? That's the number one thing. He is 28-6 as a head coach, and he is 24-3 over the last 2 years. So I didn't feel like I was reaching when I put him into a top 25, but I'm glad to see that more people are seeing how talented that team is.
Now, when he signed with Colorado, I first looked at it and I said, everyone's saying, this and that about how well he was going to do. And I was like, he's going to need a year. He's going to need a year to build up this team. And then I think they signed 63 new scholarship players over the offseason, reaching into the portal, bringing people over to transfer. What he did in 6 months' time is absolutely ludicrous. And, I keep on saying, is this for real? With what we saw, last weekend, is this the team that we're going to see again? Because a lot of people are already like, Nebraska's going to come in there and, knock them down a peg. How do you feel about this weekend's game?
Well, I picked Colorado to win. Right? I don't think that Nebraska's going to show up in Colorado's sold-out home opener and get handed an L. Okay. But he's been doing this for 10 months. That's one. Two, in our sport, you don't have to wait a year or 3 years any longer, not just because of the transfer portal, but because we can see how you can get into the college football playoff. Texas Christian, for instance, went 5-7 in 2021, and they played for the national championship game, or in the national championship game in 2022. USC goes from 4-8 to an 11-win team that played in the Cotton Bowl last year. So you can do this overnight. You just have to be very good about who you're picking up out of the portal. I also think that, again, it's just taking a look at how he has recruited and how those kids want to play for him, right? It's not really that difficult to see on my end. But I don't think it's ludicrous. I think that you're going to see more college football teams go this route. If they can get good overnight, they will. And I think the team you saw on Saturday will be the team that you continue to see, barring any injuries.
RJ, when you look at the way Prime has built this team, and he's done it, like you said, in a short amount of time, 10 months, you know me, my love of all things as far as reading books about the mafia and things like that. I look at this, and it's very much the mafioso model, right? I mean, Deion's smart. He understands what he needs to win. And I think when people need to look at this, Deion's the figurehead. He's the godfather of this thing, but he has built this pyramid, this structure of power in this program that everything really fits well together. They complement each other. And I think that in his case, incredibly smart of him to do and say, look, I can only do so much, but I better surround myself with good people.
which, Jerry, you know better than anybody else, doesn't make him much different than guys that play for championships in all sports. But I'm going to stick to mine, right? Nick Saban hasn't called a play in over 20 years. Mac Brown hasn't called a play in over 20 years. Kirby Smart hasn't called a play since he got to the University of Georgia. The guys that are working for him, to go with your mafia analogy, are guys that want to be coached by him. He's coaching coaches. Like the term that we use in my sport is CEO, right? He is a chief executive officer as the head coach. He motivates, right? He understands what it takes to get to where they're going because he's been there himself. And one of the things that I really think is fascinating about him is he's very good at showing you the baby and never once telling you what the labor pains are. While inside of their building, all they do is outwork people. That is what it is built on, is work ethic, is pride. One of the things I think you'll appreciate in particular, Jerry, is he had a guy that wanted a single digit. Okay? Single digit football, it's a very big deal. But it's a guy that hadn't played much, and it's a guy that hadn't shown much. And Prime said, no way. I'm old school. You got to go earn a single digit. You want a specific number. You got to show me that you have earned it. And I think that's all up and down the board for them, because it's not just Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter or Dylan Edwards for that matters. All those guys expect to win. And that's the most important part of what we're doing here. Do you expect to win? Because none of them were surprised that they came away with that win. And that, if nothing else, means the world to me, because now, okay, cool, we get to talk about you the way that I've always wanted to talk about a Colorado program.
When you look at this team, would you say if they do have a weakness, it's their lines, their fronts? I wouldn't say front seven, but definitely their defensive line, offensive line, if they do have a weakness?
I think more their defensive line than their offensive line. Of course, I'll defer to you on this, Big O, but like the thing that I always tell people is they got 3 grad transfers on that offensive line, right? They have 69 total starts on that offensive line and 81 games played. So that's one. Defensively, though, they're talented, but they get moved off the ball, and this is probably going to be a bugaboo, right? Other than their special teams, which I think is actually the weakness of that football team. I think when you look at how to beat a Prime coach team, can you run the football? So they start 3-0 in 2021 this spring, and they took their first loss to Alabama State, 35-28. Alabama State scores 21 points in the fourth quarter. But they rode a running back named Ezra Gray to 195 yards on 23 carries to get that win against Jackson State. And then last week, you saw Imani Bailey go for 164 yards on the ground, gashing them on just 14 rushes. So, yeah, I think more of their front seven than their front five. But the game is going to be won and lost for them, I think, in special teams, right? They got to be able to make field goals. They can't let guys run the ball back on them, and they have to be able to cover punts.
You know, when you look at Deion and what he's doing, and you know, we can talk about different things. I know kind of the big topic right now is Travis Hunter. Can he go ahead and sustain this type of play count week in and week out? And, you know, maybe we'll touch on that in a second. But what is the end game for Deion? Is it the NFL? Is it a different program? You know, one of the things I noticed this weekend was, and of course, his son, and he's got a tremendous social media team. Nothing is left not filmed. And I think that's, in his case, really, really smart and really, really cool to be able to get that behind-the-scenes view. But the whole Nike deal with them making the shoes again, the shoes that Prime wore when he played in the, you know, you look good, you play good, you get paid good, right? You know the saying on them. This whole machine that's churning, what's the end game for him? Is it the NFL? Somebody made a joke and said they could see Jerry Jones taking Shedeur first round and hiring Deion as his next head coach. I really didn't think that was that far-fetched.
I don't think he wants to coach in the NFL. He's said as much, as a matter of fact. He wants to affect change wherever he is. And he also understands what Nick Saban came to understand. And I think this is important. Nick Saban won a national championship at LSU, went to Miami to coach the Dolphins. Didn't go as well as he wanted it to go. Goes back to Alabama. What he learned was, hey, in the NFL, I get 1 first-round draft pick, and that's if my GM hasn't traded it away. In college, I can go sign 25. And I can sign 25 every single year. Even right now, Prime is the leader on the #1 recruit in the class of 2025 at quarterback, who's a dude with an arm cannon, who's every bit of 6'4" and a sophomore, right? you can do that and you can sustain winning at a high level, why would you want to do something else? To your point about social media and the marketing, the branding, that's about his Amazon show as much as anything else. Most of the stuff that we see, right, is stuff that they just can't use for the documentary series that he has sold to Amazon. Coach Prime from 2 years ago, or last year, I guess it would be, is outstanding. He gets to talk about it. We got to see Travis Hunter fight through an injury, right? So we know what he's made of. There's a lot there that you could pull from how his coaches feel about him and how they feel empowered, but also they fear him. They don't want to let him down. You could see timestamps on everything. You have to be at this meeting at this time or you won't play. Or worse yet, you don't have a spot on the football team anymore, right? That part of it, I think he has more control. And not for nothing, but in the NFL, I don't know that a head coach has as much control as a college football head coach. And that means the world to many of them. Like Urban Meyer is a great example. Outstanding college football coach. Couldn't quite get it done in the NFL. So why would you want to leave winning at a high level to go somewhere where you're forced to be mediocre from the start and you might get good? But the chances of you staying good work against you because of the NFL draft and the salary cap. We don't have those in my sport. You can just be great.
Jay, I don't know. Do you have a speaker on?
Gotcha.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you. I can hear it a little bit. Moving on to something else that's been going on in college football, and you know, you and I texted a little bit about it today. The Caleb Williams situation. He basically came out and pulled an Eli Manning and said, I'm not going to go play for Arizona if Arizona's tanking to draft me. What are his options? Do you think that's foolish? Do you think he should come out? You go back to college and then play another year and see who's available then. What are your feelings on the Caleb Williams situation as far as entering the draft after this season?
I think it's nice to see a kiddo use his leverage. That's what I think. Even if he's just selling wolf tickets, we don't get to see that many kids get to sell wolf tickets right, about what they may or may not do. I'm very interested to see how far he takes this, but he didn't actually say that. Carl Williams said that, right? He said that in a GQ profile that was posted on Wednesday morning. It's a good read. It's an easy read. If you're a college football fan, you probably know a bunch of this, but it's still nice to hear what other people think of Caleb Williams and what he thinks of himself. To say nothing of that dude's a male model, and they used that to great effect in that GQ story. But if he wants to come back in 2024, the way that I would think about this is, let's assume, for the sake of our discussion, he wins the Heisman Trophy and he wins a national championship. The last guy that would have been able to take advantage of that sort of popularity at the University of Southern California is Matt Leinart. Like, I always thought that he was the guy that missed the name, image, and likeness part, because as much as people want to talk about Reggie was already going to go to the NFL. Right. Matt got to come back, and he would have got to come back with a Heisman Trophy. How much money can you make as a college football quarterback if that's what you're doing? Remember, this guy's doing Wendy's commercials and all sorts of other things. So it's not
Sanders is making a lot of money now too. They said Sanders is making over $3 million or something this year.
Well, this is for you, Sarah. By the time that Caleb Williams gets to his second contract, isn't he looking at like $70 million?
I mean, probably, because right now, you're looking a little over 50 for most of these, quarterbacks or like Burrow when he's, 50 something. So it's going to be, probably by the time he hits his second contract, damn near $70 million.
Why not wait and make 25, 30 in your senior and graduate with probably a master's degree, because I think he's going to graduate in December with his undergraduate degree.
Do you think Nil will stay around for that long? Because there's been a lot of people who have a problem with it.
Why?
I don't. I'm just saying a lot of people are starting to have a problem with the amount of money because of, obviously there's a lot of arguments either way. People are thinking that, you shouldn't be paying, college kids are getting a free education and blah, 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 blah. It goes back and forth. So the why.
Right. And the one thing that I wanted to say, and Sarah, it's a good point, but one of the things I wanted to say was, when I played, you did what? You went and you got the Lloyd's of London contract, right? You got the Lloyd's of London insurance contract, where if you had a career-ending injury, you got paid. Well, you had to jump through a lot of hoops to prove to them that it was career-ending. This whole NIL deal in college, especially with the superstars like Caleb Williams, is kind of their Lloyd's of London. If something were to happen, he still has $35 million in the bank, right? So is the risks now not quite as great as it used to be, RJ?
I don't think so. I think playing football is risky. Full
You're
stop.
right.
Right? And as far as being able to cash out your insurance, anybody that's ever tried to collect their insurance after totaling their car has been through what you're talking about with this Lloyd's of London's contract,
Right.
where it's just difficult to prove that you are owed what you thought you were going to get owed for your vehicle. And as far as people having a problem with it, take a hike. We all get paid. We get
Right.
paid to do a job. They play football to pay for an education. If they can do more than that, we should.
Right.
That's what they're owed. We watch them play on television. Somebody get paid for that. Just like Josh Allen gets paid.
Right.
Where does that money come from? Television. Why do people need to see these kids not make any money? What difference does it make to them?
Right.
Do you want to see somebody get raised up, or do you want to keep your finger on them?
I
That's
feel
why
like,
I asked,
you know,
why is it a problem?
right. And this is a whole nother discussion that would love to have you on again sometime to talk about, because when you talk about Nell, the other sports in college becomes a question then. Well, what about the people who play tennis and play, you know, golf, or who swim and gymnastics that can't go out and compete and earn a purse for, you know, their winnings because it, you know, it goes against NCAA rules. So it would be an interesting discussion sometime. But the one thing I did want to talk about quick, considering, you know, week 1 officially is over with college football. You got week 0 for some, but the AP poll has come out, and this is what we're looking at currently. In your opinion, and I don't know if you had a playoff teams in your mind heading into the season, if they've changed at all, what your opinion is going into you know, week 2, and how do you foresee some of these teams shaking out, and what is your prediction this year for the playoffs, if you don't mind sharing?
I think going into the season, I had Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama as the 4 teams that make the playoff. I see no reason to change that up. Even if Alabama takes a loss to Texas, like I think that they might over the weekend, they can still make the SEC championship game. And if they have the 1 loss and they get into a close game against Georgia, the selection committee has shown they won't hold that against Alabama. They'll put them in there. The same thing is true of an Ohio State last year, who didn't even play in the Big Ten championship game and got beat pretty handily by Michigan, still made the college football playoff. So it's less about how many games that you won and more about how do we feel about you playing in the college football playoff. Texas Christian, great example, lost the Big 12 championship, still made it because they went 12-0 in the regular season. I think that you should start looking at this from the 10 up, right? Because really it's difficult to make it into the playoff if you are not already a top 10 team, or at least a top 10 team by the middle of October when we get into conference play. But it's Georgia's world, man. They have an opportunity to win 3 consecutive national championships. That's only happened once in our sport, and that's 1934, 1935, 1936 for Minnesota. And many people don't even count that because the AP poll didn't even exist, the one we're looking at, until 1936. Wow. So it's kind of unprecedented what Georgia might be able to do, and their schedule is so soft that it's really difficult to see them taking a loss before they get to maybe even Tennessee, which is November. So those are my 4 teams. We'll see, right? But it's all about, can you beat Georgia? And right now, I don't know who can.
Do you have any surprise teams that you're going to kind of put on that cusp of potential?
USC. I like Caleb Williams. I like Lincoln Riley. I think that that's an outstanding combination. If the defense can keep a lid on the end zone, they might be okay.
That
you
right
can't
there.
give up 46 to Utah in a big in a Pac-12 championship, right? You just can't do that. You can't get beat by them twice. And then Oregon also, they just look good. Bo Nix feeling it. Bucky Irving back there. Troy Franklin is a weapon. I like those two. And I'm always going to look for my Oklahoma Sooners to make a run, right? They're talented. They pitched a shutout last week, which is a really cool thing to see from a team that gave up 30 a game. And frankly, they're talented enough to make a run at this thing. Getting to the playoff, though, for Oklahoma has never been as difficult as winning a playoff game. So 3 teams on the cusp for you.
Awesome.
You can check RJ out on Twitter. Also, you check him out on the #1 college football show on Fox Sports. He's online. He's got a YouTube channel. RJ, when is your show? Tuesday, right?
We do a show on Tuesdays that goes up on Wednesdays, and we do a live show on Saturday nights following the big game of the week. This week, that is Texas at Alabama, and we'll do a rankings reaction show on Sunday, right at the start of NFL kickoff. So I don't know that anybody here is going to be paying attention to that one, but please join us on Saturday night. We have a good time.
Well, maybe this week they'll pay attention because the Bills don't play till Monday night. But if they're playing Sunday, it'll be a little bit tough. RJ, I appreciate you as always. We hope to have you back on. Unbelievable content, right on point as always. Thank you for making time for us. And yes, sir.
Oh, you know I love you. That's my big brother over there, and that's my uncle. I'm uncle to his son Owen, and that's one of the other reasons that I'm always going to be listening to this show. And I'm always going to take sides with Tulsa when they play Washington. Guys, thanks so much for having me. I'll talk to you
later.
later.
I appreciate you. Later on, brother.
Thanks, RJ.
RJ Young, again, the host of the #1 college football show at Fox Sports. You can catch him on YouTube. You heard the times. Tuesday night, they got a live reaction show after the big game on Saturday. They got an instant reaction to the college polls on Sunday. Check him on Twitter. He's a good follow. He's a good guy. And hopefully we'll have RJ on again. And by the way, he didn't say this, but RJ's a University of Tulsa graduate, Sarah. So don't let him kid you. He is also a Golden Hurricane, as well as a master's student from the University of Oklahoma. So he can actually he can fly a lot of flags in his yard as far as who he cheers for. But hey, as we said, the first segment is going to be college football. That's how it's going to be the rest of the year. That's our structure. And then we are going to go into the pro game here after this. We're going to talk about our Bills, but Sarah's got this first.
Yeah, give me one moment. All right, we're going to have a quick message from our Buffalo Rumblings sponsor now for Ficht, Endel, and Elmer Eye Care.
It's time to say goodbye to the blur and hello to clear vision. Ficht, Endel, and Elmer are the first in Western New York to bring you Zeiss Smile technology. Along with our highly experienced surgeons, we promise an effortless journey to better vision. Gone are the days of fumbling for glasses or struggling with contact lenses. Embrace the freedom of superb sight, because we believe you deserve the world in HD. Visit us online at Fichte.com and schedule a consultation. Fichte, Endel, and Elmer. We are focused on you.
As you can see, I'm about ready to fly up to Buffalo and make an appointment with the fine people because I wear glasses. So I don't know if I can get helped by LASIK or not, but I'd like to see
I actually filled out their free consultation as kind of part of the process. Looking because Dan Freddie he got his done and he told me all about it. While I'm in New York, I'm actually going in for the consultation. I can't stand wearing glasses, actual glasses. I wear sunglasses. I wear sunglasses all the time. Everyone picks on me. They're like, I don't know what Sarah's eyes look like. She's always in sunglasses. Yeah. But for games, I literally went out and got contacts so that I can watch the games now with contacts. So I'll hopefully be able to see a little bit better this year.
Exactly. But hey, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're here every Wednesday, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. It is Line to Gain with Sara Larson and myself, the Big O, Jerry Ostroski, right here on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. Podcast listeners who are listening on the pod, welcome in. We appreciate you listening as well. It is now time to talk about Week 1, the opener on the road in New Jersey against the New York Jets. And, Sarah, it's one of these games, and I had a bit of the red ass today, so
yes,
Sarah,
I know.
Sarah texted me, and I was a bit grumpy.
Yeah.
When you have children, those types of things happen. But I've been thinking a lot about this football game, a lot about the ramifications of this football game. I, in my mind, have made this a big, big game for this team. Sarah, you kind of not quite as much as me. I know it's a big game, but I think you're not quite as stressed out about the outcome as I am.
Right. I think I have a little bit of a recency bias over the last few years. We lost the home opener against Pittsburgh a couple years ago, and then went out and looked pretty darn awesome the rest of the season. Last year, I think I told you Cincinnati opened up with a loss. We beat the reigning NFL Super Bowl champions. And look how they ended the season. And look how, we ended up ending the season. So I'm trying not to put so much stock in it. Maybe I've been told that's probably because I'm not as confident as I'm acting. So maybe I'm being a little bit of have a little bit of bias because I want to be able to say it doesn't mean anything after the game's over with. But I want to go in confident. I want to go in believing that this team has what it takes. But I have always been the person that says the first game of the season, anything can happen because none of the starters have really played more than a couple of series. So you never know when you're putting it all together, what it's going to really look like, live action and against somebody other than your own defense. So I try not to put too much stock in it. I think Rodgers lost 3 years in a row on opening day. So with the Packers. So I'm not really trying to be worried about it that much. Now, will I be sick to my stomach if the bad juju happens and the Bills lose? Yeah, of course I'm gonna be sick about it, but I have to start now making my excuses of why it's not going to matter heading into week 2. No, I'm joking.
Sarah, I think the biggest thing for me is that I really look at pro football as a game of matchups. I look at college football most of the time until the big time heavyweights play one another as a game of who's got better players. Now, obviously, that does not always work because you had what happened on Monday night when the Duke Blue Devils beat Clemson, right? Well, Clemson, 2 turnovers inside the 10-yard line, interceptions, mistakes all over the place, couldn't tackle. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into a football game that you can't control as a coach, right? But when I look at pro football, I really look at it as the game of matchups. And when I look at the matchups right now with Buffalo and the Jets, that's what worries me about this game. I don't see the matchups in our favor. For instance, right off the bat, when I look at our offensive line and I look at their defensive line, I think the Jets have a big time advantage up front in their front and really in their front seven, period. I think their front seven is dominant. You throw Sauce Gardner in there, and then you got the makings of a championship defense. Bills win this game. I don't think it's one of these high scoring games. Now it could be, but I don't think it is. I think it's a defensive battle.
Yeah.
And I think they have they make maybe a couple more plays than the Jets do, but that's what worries me about this game right off the bat is the matchups do not favor Buffalo in my estimation.
Yeah, and I think what you just said about the Jets, about how their front seven against our, front five is not the matchup we want to see. Well, I think it's the other way around as well. I think that, the Bills front seven, maybe front six, because we don't know how Bernard's going to be on defense yet. Anyways, so, they don't want to go, the Jets don't want to go up against our defense just as much. If we're going to look at, I shouldn't say any team. If we're going to look at each of these teams, it's the offensive line on both of these rosters that are the weak link. So I think whatever offensive line plays that much better, whether it's, a smidgen better or whatnot, between that and, what we could figure out to play around that, whether or not it's, having 2 tight ends in there to make sure one of them's blocking, to have Reggie in there, to ensure that, there's someone always, kind of there, helping out Josh. It takes away an offensive weapon, but maybe that's what, we need to do. And then, whether or not they can counter that, we'll see how it works out. I think, though, that, the Bills have just as much of an opportunity. We've beat the Jets quite a bit. And granted, this is a very different Jets offense, but I still think it's a, very similar Jets defense that we've played over the last couple of years. So
I think we're 7-3 in the last 10 against them.
Yes. So, and the three that we've lost have been pretty close that I, can remember.
Right.
At least I remember the last two. So, again, it's going to be a defensive game. You're right when you say that. I think it'll be low scoring enough. I think that it'll be in the low 20s. But I'm not gonna give up week one just to save face and say that the Bills aren't going to pull this one off just because all you guys are saying the Jets are going to win.
Well, first of all, I didn't say anything yet.
I just know.
Yeah.
I hear. I had the text message earlier, Jerry.
Well, you're not supposed to say
I'm
anything,
spoiling
Sarah.
it, huh?
To me, this is another. What I want to know is who makes the schedule, because I feel like, and I hate to be this guy, but when do we get favored in scheduling? When do we get favored
They
in
would
scheduling?
say this year because we got our way and we're in Miami the very last week of the season
for one
this
game.
Year.
So they gone ahead and they given us the last, which to me personally, the last game of the year in Miami is more miserable than playing down there early, because you're sitting in 0-degree weather for a month and a half, 2 months, and then you got to get on a plane and go play in 85 and humid.
Yeah.
I hated playing down there the last part of the season. It was
Right.
miserable. But
Yeah,
no,
and
seriously, think about this, though. We're going to the Meadowlands. We're going to MetLife Stadium, opening the season, Monday night. They've got Aaron Rodgers. They want it. This, to me, just reeks of the setup last year when we had to roll into Cincinnati and play the Bengals when we did. And, obviously everything that happened after that, but it just feels like a setup. We play in New York right off the bat with that whole deal. We go to Cincinnati. We go to Kansas City. We go to Philadelphia. Could we get some hard teams to play in Orchard Park?
Well,
that would be nice.
I understand how the schedule is set up. So it's already predefined who we're going to take on years from now. So
the algorithm's biased.
Yeah. Well, realistically, you go through each one of the
Right.
the divisions and everything, and you're playing 2 at home and 2 away. And then you have every year you're playing one of the divisions. You're playing whatever team finished the same place that you did. So, a couple years ago, it was the Titans, where we had to go to Tennessee because they were the number 1 seed. We were the number 1 seed. And then it flip-flopped. They were the number 1 seed, they were the number 1 seed and had to come here. So it, flip-flop. Kansas City, it did the same thing. The year that they played us in Buffalo, though, was COVID year. I'm almost positive. So they come back to Buffalo finally, I think next year.
Okay.
But when you're doing the matchups of one division against the other division, and it's basically where you're finishing in that division, unfortunately we've gotten the ass end of it. The Jets play Philadelphia in New York. The Patriots play Philadelphia in Foxborough. Miami gets what team? I think Miami gets Kansas. Oh, Miami gets Kansas City in the international game in Germany. Right. So they don't got to go into.
Well, there you
Kansas
brought
City.
that up too. Now you brought that up, that's another poor matchup for us. We get to play a team that's been over there for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So that's why when we talk about final records and playoffs and things like that, it's really hard to look at. I'll put it to you this way: if we can rattle off 13-4, or 14-3, or hell, even 12-5, with the schedule that's been put in front of us, we're for real, because this schedule is absolutely treacherous.
Right. So,
and
so I keep on saying, and I think Spence made a comment last night on Code of Conduct about the website that I sent you guys about
Right.
going through, picking your teams, picking each team each week, how you think each team's going to finish, their matchup. A lot of people go out and they make these predictions of, Miami's going to finish, 11-5 and or 11-6, and the Jets are going to finish 12-5, and the Bills are going to finish 13-4. It doesn't work that way. It really does.
Right.
You can't just say it.
Right.
I was high on the Giants and the Commanders, but I'm also high on the Cowboys and the Eagles.
I was not high on the
good.
Commanders, but the other three in that division I was incredibly high on.
But I'm only a little high on the Commanders, more so than I have been in the past, because I like Brian Robinson, I liked Johan Dotson, and I believe that they might have an answer at quarterback that kind of reminds me of like a Kirk Cousins, kind of, can control the game. We'll see how, he plays out this year. But anyways, when you go through this, website and go through this, activity, it really goes to show that it doesn't work that way. Because when you start throwing out numbers, but you don't actually look at who these people play and where and when, and think about that, you're just throwing out, random numbers.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I had a couple of people who I would have thought were playoff caliber teams struggling to make it into the playoffs. And to me, when I did it, it was going to come down to the Jets, the Ravens, the Jets, the Bengals, and the Titans, of who was going to get the wild card, the last wild card slots. So, it's pretty crazy, because I'm like, these are all playoff teams, potentially. And when you go through and do the activity, it really shows you that it's not possible. The Jets, the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Patriots, we have a very hard schedule. Not only do we play each other, we also play the NFC East, which is a very difficult division this year. We have to believe it's probably one of the more difficult divisions in the NFC. And then we have to play,
I think it's the most difficult.
Yeah. And then we have to play the number one ranked team of the divisions. We have to play the Chiefs. We have to play the Bengals. We have to play the Jaguars. So, it's not going to be an easy, trip for us this season at all. Now, I do think that we got better in the offseason. So I will say that I look at what we did last year, 13-3, and I say, well, this year, sure, why can't we go 13-4, 12-5? That's where I have us. But doing this, little activity, I still had us winning the division. And I was trying to be very strategic about how I did certain ones. I actually had a splitting with the Dolphins and the Jets for that 13-4 record. So we'll see how, it plays out. But I had the Jets coming in at 10-7 and the Dolphins at 9-8. So it's kind of crazy when you go through the process. When you look at like the Giants and the Commanders, they were both one was 9-8 and one was 8-9 at the end of the season, based on the predictions. They all play very difficult teams, and trying to predict records and who's going to win the division. But in the end, I have the Bills taking on the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I have to believe that it's going to happen. I'm going to still do it. But I went through, like I said, all the predictions. Kansas City and the Bengals also have very difficult schedules. So we'll see, if who rises to the occasion, and the occasion.
Well, I mean, obviously, Sarah, it's about health, and just a prime example, Travis Kelce.
Right.
He's been diagnosed with a bone bruise. I doubt he plays tomorrow night. I wouldn't rush him back. I think they're good
Right.
enough to beat the Lions without Travis Kelce. But you talked about the deal we did, and it kind of shows you. I don't know if the record thing is accurate, but I think it is accurate that you can kind of determine who you feel's pretty good and who you think is going to be there at the end. Obviously, you and I talked about it. You gave me a ton of grief about it, but my number one seed after it was all said and done in the AFC was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And there
I
was
called you
nothing.
crazy.
Yeah, you called me crazy, but then
I
I was
did.
validated today by a national media member who said the same thing.
Yeah, who needs to retire?
I'm just telling you, man. The
Just joking
Steelers
with you.
are a very, very good football team, and you can talk about the quarterback all you want. He did nothing but prove to me this preseason that he's light years from where he was as a rookie. And one thing about a Mike Tomlin team, they're going to play hellacious defense, and they will run the football. So I don't think that they're going to put. It's not like he's rolling out there with everything on his back to win the football game. But no, I mean, I think there's some really intriguing teams in the AFC. I think that Jacksonville is probably, and I can't say more so than a sleeper than Pittsburgh. I mean, I like I said, I like them. I think they're going to be there
Right.
at the end of the year. But I think Jacksonville is a team that has got tremendous talent and can really, really make some waves this year. They've got
Agreed.
advantages in scheduling. Their head coach won a Super Bowl, okay?
Yeah.
And he's a tremendous quarterback coach, and Lawrence will continue to play better under him, Doug Pederson, as he's his coach. So I
But
look at that.
You said it right there though about the scheduling. So, the Jaguars I think will be beneficial. It'll be beneficial for them, their scheduling, because they play in a very weak AFC South. So,
Well, I think my NFC South. I did the thing right. We did the
it's
whole
even
picks
worse.
right, and I'm sitting there going, "How in the absolute hell is Carolina in the playoffs?" And the
Oh,
reason they
no.
were is because I had the NFC South so bad that they made the playoffs with like seven wins or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Because the
Yeah.
division is such trash.
No, I have the Saints, then Atlanta, then the Buccaneers, and then Carolina. So
Right.
I'm a little higher on Carolina or on Atlanta than I realized. Maybe it's a little bit of a Bijan bias for me. Well, we'll find out. But I think the Saints, provided Derek Carr can at
Say it.
play,
Well, not even that. It's stay healthy. The guy's been.
Yeah.
He always has.
Well,
injuries
yeah,
that
I
take
mean,
him
he
out of
needs to
games.
stay healthy, but he just needs to not create problems. If
Right.
he just ends up being a game manager, that's really all they need. It's kind of the opposite of what Winston provided. So Winston would go out there and throw for 5,000 yards, but he was also throwing, 30 interceptions a year.
Right.
I think that if he can control that, if he can make sure that there's no, turnovers, he doesn't need to throw for that much, but he possibly can. I think that the Saints have a decent enough offense, especially when Kamara comes back, that they can definitely win the South pretty easily. And I'm happy that Jimmy Graham's back, so that makes me happy as well.
Let's get back into the game that we all want to talk about, the Bills versus the Jets. Monday night, first Monday night game of the season in MetLife in New Jersey. A little bit of unsettling news today out of One Bills Drive with Micah Hyde is a little bit nicked up. And this was my worry. I talked about it numerous times. Tremendously physical position, guys that are not young and, back tightness, whatever it is or whatever it may lead to. You don't like to hear those types of things out of your starting safety and a guy that's been a defensive leader in his career for your ball club.
Right. And it is definitely unfortunate. I'm hoping that by Monday they can make sure that he's good to go. But I don't want them to start him if it's going to make it worse. I'd rather have him down the stretch. Do I want Hamlin starting against the Jets? Not really, but if that's what has to happen, it's what has to happen. I don't know if they would have Rapp start in his position. Or if they would have, because Hamlin's more strong side, I would think. So, however they have that, I'm glad we have Rapp on the team. I feel like he can play not only, nickel corner, he could play dime, he could play strong and free safety. So I feel like he can kind of move around. So I'm less concerned this year with than I was last year with Jaquan Johnson and Hamlin being our two backups. But at the same time, like I said, I don't want Hyde to be out the whole season because he went in and played a game that he probably shouldn't have played in. His neck injury, I'm sure he's still building back, strength and stability in his back. And that could be it. We don't know, the tightness could be muscle spasms. Don't know exactly what it is. But, we've seen it with Spencer Brown, how those things can linger. So I, just want him to get healthy, and I hope that they make the best decision for him and the team before Monday.
Some other announcements today: Osiris Torrance named starter, not a shock. I think everybody expected that. Also, Benford named starter at cornerback too. I just seen the preseason, the way things went. That's not a shock to me. You might have some different viewpoints on that. And then also Bernard, probably in either
not probably he's
erasable ink, in either erasable ink or pencil, put in as the starter at middle linebacker.
True.
What do you think about the cornerback 2 position and that call to go with him?
So I'm going to be a little bit different than others. I went back to last year's stats and looked at everything. And towards the end of the year, the more Elam played, the better he looked and the better his numbers were. I don't know why preseason and camp he looked worse than the others, because at one point they were even talking about Dane Jackson starting, which scared the heck out of me. I like Benford's attitude. He's rising up to the the occasion. Mm-hmm. But if you look at their numbers back to like side by side, Benford, and again going back to last year, so it is brand new year. Maybe Benford has grown. Benford was the worst of the two corners statistically, with how many times targeted, how many times the
in
offense,
another defense, in another style of defense.
So correct. So if we want to give this all a clean slate, he won the position battle. My only concern is what it's doing to Elam mentally, whether or not him being the first round pick and he can't beat out the 6th round pick, or does he feel like he's not really been given a fair share, a fair shakeout? Those are the things that I kind of worry about. But in the end, I care about the W. So whoever's going to go out there to get us that W, that's who needs to be out on that field. I think, and we're playing the Jets, so it's perfect time to say it. And I've said it before. I think Elam is a lot like Sauce Gardner. They're both very handsy cornerbacks. Sauce gets away with it. Elam doesn't. And Elam needs to realize that he's not going to get away with it. Sauce was a top 4 pick. He was not, so there's a lot of hype coming out of, New York. He's probably still going to get away with it. Elam will not get away with it. So he needs to change the way he's attacking these wide receivers. I know he's, very good. That's why we took him out of Florida. It's because he's very good in man coverage, but he gets handsy and starts to hold a little. And again, so does Sauce. But Sauce is, the number one cornerback in the NFL, according to everybody. And, he's amazing. But when you watch the tape, it's very like literally, and I know that you like Sauce and, watch a couple of plays from both of them.
No,
They're very similar.
the great ones all hold, but they know how to hold. They know how to grab. They know how to do things. I think Sauce is like I said, it's a different style. I think they all do it. Some can get away with it, some can't. And obviously Elam has had some issues. But before we get into what I think is the X factor of this game, real quick, I do think one thing is interesting, and I haven't quite put my finger on it yet as far as if it's real or not. And if you've watched enough Hard Knocks this season with the Jets, I don't ever remember Robert Saleh being known as a fiery type of coach, as a guy that comes off with a lot of bravado and a lot of tough, he's always seemed to be a rather chill dude, right? And making the rounds today on the X app, I was going to call it Twitter, but the app formerly known as Twitter, was his speech from last night's Hard Knocks, where he talked about, the worst thing you can have is when a coach comes over and says, "Man, your guys really play hard," and basically that's just like the coach saying, "You guys suck," And he gave this big fiery speech about it, and I haven't quite figured it out yet. It's probably somewhere in the middle. A lot of times when guys do this and they come out with all this rhetoric and fire and brimstone type speech, there's some doubt in the back of their minds. And I wonder if that's the case with Saleh, that maybe, they weren't expected to do much last year. They figured out a way to salvage some games. But then they go ahead and in the offseason and they bring in a first ballot Hall of Famer and one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game, Aaron Rodgers. You got another year of Sauce Gardner. You got some guys. You bring Cooks in. You bring his brother in. All of a sudden, there's a little bit of is it
pressure?
Real? Is it yes? And with that pressure, is it real confidence or is it fake confidence? And I think that's where I tend to believe there's a little bit of doubt coming out of that camp with the way this is all going on. But I also think, and this is the one thing I'll be curious to see Monday night, if, it's kind of like that the coach would you'd say, you got a basketball team, you got an average team in LeBron or a superstar, right? Everybody stops moving on the court without the ball and they're just staring at the other guy, right? They're staring at LeBron. Is that going to be the case Monday night where everybody's staring at Aaron Rodgers like going, "Okay, man, like we brought you in to do this. Are you going to get us out of this? Or are you going to, you're going to win us this game?" And it's like, that's the only thing about the Jets, because they haven't had a culture of winning. And when you've pumped yourself up so much and then all of a sudden you face adversity, are you able to fight your way out of it? That'll be a big thing on Monday night.
And I believe this whole offseason has been this big, huge love fest for Aaron Rodgers. And he has not tasted the New York media from a negative from a negative standpoint.
Aaron Rodgers has faced a worldwide negative media over the whole COVID situation and then going off into the darkness hut. And
of
all
course.
that.
Yes, he has.
He's faced national.
My point is, though, is that he went from, not being happy in Green Bay and he's doing, all this and facing the media and being like, "I don't give a crap." Now, all of a sudden, he's everyone's darling and they're Super Bowl favorites. And, he's expected to reign in this team and to win. Well, what happens when all of a sudden they start losing and he gets that blowback, whether or not that, that love fest is now over, whether or not he's seen, not as happy anymore. And, everyone's, kind of changes that narrative of, "Oh, look he's always smiling. He's so much happier now. Everyone's in trouble because, Aaron Rodgers is going to take over the NFL this year." I am so over, and it was the Bills last year. So I understand how everyone was probably tired about it that wasn't a Bills fan last year. everyone had the Bills as Super Bowl, favorites, champions, whatever, heading into the season. And, now everyone's doing it for the Jets. Well, it's not, nauseating. So I can imagine what people felt like, last year. I think that there is some doubt there, probably because of the pressure. And I think that's the NFL. They are good on paper. Let's see if they can put it all together. But yes, they brought in a whole heck of a lot of people that in their mind is supposed to put them over that hump. And, Matt put it in the comments. It's a lot like the Browns a couple years ago. They had, they brought in all these weapons on offense and defense, and they were supposed to be, favorites. They were such a complete team, and they looked ridiculous.
But the Jets only brought in a few guys. They didn't try to do the whole. And you remember the old days when Washington tried to do it with Andre Reed, Bruce Smith. I think they had held it.
They brought in a couple of couple wide receivers. They brought in Cook.
Right.
They brought in Rodgers, of course. They brought in quite a few people. Lazard, Cobb, Cook, like.
Well, they brought in the receivers for their quarterback. I mean,
Yeah.
they all played together.
Well,
I don't know.
So
I just wonder if there's a little bit of that. But before we get out of here, I know we got a few more minutes, so I want to talk about one thing. Then we'll get on to our predictions for this week. I believe the X factor of this game, because nobody knows, because nothing was shown in the preseason, and that's Kincaid. I really, really am excited for Monday night to see what they do with Kincaid in this offense. If they do the same things they did in the preseason and we don't see a tremendous amount of packages or a revamped offense with it, if there is not something done specifically for him, then you can get rid of the OC the next week, in my estimation. With this talent that he's bringing in, I think that he's the guy that could be the difference for this offense this season. And I really, really hope we see that on Monday night. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going to disagree with you on. I think Kincaid is the X. Yeah, I think Kincaid is the X factor this season. I really do think that it's going to be, his season to shine, and I think he's going to surprise none of us, because I think that we're all expecting Kincaid to do that.
Well, how does that disagree with what I said?
Because I don't think we're going to show it week one. I don't think.
What are you waiting for?
No, well,
seriously, what are we waiting? It's a divisional game. What are you waiting for?
But that's why, because it's a divisional game. It's the week. I think you got to build up to it a little bit. You're not going to show all your cards week one, because what if we do lose? Then, you go in, to week two and taking on, the Raiders at home, and you've already shown, a lot of your cards. So
I will say this. If you moved up in the draft to pick this guy to be a difference maker,
I'm not saying he's not going to play.
No. Let me finish. If you moved up and used draft capital to trade up to draft this guy when you did, and you don't build an offense around him, everybody should be fired. Bring in Thurman, Jim. Let Jim run the team. Let Thurman go. They should all be fired. That's my opinion. That's why you drafted them. That's why you played them. There's no secrets in the NFL. You can't hide anything.
They're going to play him. I just think that it's going to be.
I know they're going to play him. I want to see
I just think it's going to be more of a build-up. I don't think that we're going to, I think he'll get targeted probably 4 or 5 times. I don't think that he's going to get targeted 10 times like Diggs. Unless
Diggs got to get open.
Well, for some reason, and it scares the crap out of me, but for some reason, Josh loves throwing the ball to Diggs when he's being covered by Sauce, or
so he doesn't get yelled at,
because he'll get yelled at.
Yeah, that's what Jason Whitlock said anyway.
Yeah, well, but that's being with that being said, everyone we'll get into our predictions for the game. People are saying that the Bills have the most pressure on them to win the Super Bowl this year. I actually think that it might be the Jets just a little bit more than the Bills, because of the narrative going. And I think that we had that narrative last year, that the pressure was a little bit more. I like the fact that national attention is off of us.
No, I do. I think that too. I think that that's a big deal. I think that there was way too much talk about Buffalo last year, and it's nice that there's not a ton of talk about them. I mean, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of national attention on the Jets. Peter King has them as a second seed in the AFC, I think, behind Kansas City. But I also think that this is going to be one of those seasons where it's all about health. I think
Right.
you've got a lot of teams that can win this in the AFC. I think that the Bills can win it. The Chiefs obviously can win it. Jacksonville has a chance. Yes, I do believe Pittsburgh has a chance. There's the Bengals. You got a lot of teams that can win this thing. It's really going to come down to health and luck. I think there's going to be a lot of health and a lot of luck. But
people underestimate that luck portion. But there is
a ton of it.
Ton of luck that comes along to an NFL schedule.
And unlike the saying on most teams' weight room walls about the teams that are luckiest are the ones that are the most prepared, that's not true. It really comes down to luck a lot of times and just getting a break when you need a break. So, real quick, Sarah, your predictions on how this thing's going to go. I'll give you mine, then we'll get out of here.
All right. I wish I had a little like sound thing of people booing so I can boo your prediction. My prediction is 24-20 with the Bills winning.
I like the Jets Monday night in the MetLife Stadium. I actually like them 27-20. I'm not sold on a few things. I'm not sold on a few things. And one of the things I'm not sold on is, and I know everybody's talking about how great this defense is going to be. It's a year older. The guy that orchestrated it is no longer on this team, Leslie Frazier. I'm not completely sold yet on this defense, and I'm going to have to see some things. And it just makes me, as a former player, nerved up to no end. This is just one of them games. It's like you're walking into the Coliseum getting ready to fight the Lions. It's to me, it's another NFL setup, but we'll see. I hope I'm wrong, and you can all cuss me out next week, and I'll be happy with it.
All right. Well, I will be heading out on Friday. I fly into to Newark and then spending a couple days chilling in the city and whatnot, and then I'll be there Monday night and check out Twitter. I'm sure I'll have some live coverage or something going on from the tailgate and then the game.
Outstanding. As always, folks, thanks for checking in. Thanks for listening. Podcast listeners, thank you for listening. This is the Line to Gauge show on the Buffalo Rumblings Vidcast Network. She's Sara Larson. I'm the Big O, Jerry Ostroski. Thanks to our special guest on our first segment, RJ Young from Fox Sports, national college football analyst. You can catch him on the #1 college football show, and that's on Tuesday nights, and he has some other things going on as well. But as always, we end with one love and go Bills.
Go Bills.